collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. I've added a
But then do you think, as I
paragraph.
think you kind of answered my question earlier itself, but that you know, skill development is going to be difficult in kids when they're doing online learning. So technology cannot replace a teacher at any given point, right? I
No.
hope not, where there will be robots coming and teaching. Hello. I mean,
Although that is happening in some places.
all my nightmares. My daughter didn't even own an iPad until this lockdown. Like suddenly she owns an iPad now because, you know, all her learning is happening through iPad. Um, you know, I work a lot with the government schools. I mean, my NGO Teach for Change, we're in over 1,000 government schools that we teach English and leadership qualities, not just here, but in like 6 different states. Everything has come to a halt because students are not going to school. Now, at least we have the technology, right? Access to technology as my kids or your kids. How do we, because the larger number of school-going kids in India are government school-going kids, how can we address them and create an access to them to keep them in the learning process as well? Can you give me anything that I can take away from that?
Sure. I think when we talk about global citizenship, digital citizenship, right? It's really about digital access. And, you know, I'm wondering, I don't know the right answer, whether the digital divide has gotten bigger as we have seen in this lockdown, or is it not as bad as we think it is? Because we also have to be aware that the cost of technology and having access to data has become accessible even to the lower socioeconomic strata, right? Nobody has those old-fashioned phones with just the dial, right?
No one.
Have smartphones, even if it's cheaper quality smartphones. So they do have maybe more access than they did maybe 10 years ago. Do you remember that one Abhishek commercial on Idea? It was like those old phones, like, I don't know, it was like early 2000s, and like somebody couldn't get admission, and then all of a sudden there was a teacher putting it on just speaker, and then the kids were actually having classes under the trees in the villages, right? I don't know if you remember that, but that was almost kind of like a foreshadowing of what may come in the future. But I think what we need to, you brought up a really good point, we need to make sure that society, government, educational institutions, we all have to make sure that there's, you know, inclusive education, right? There's equity in our system, despite socioeconomic strata, language, creed, community. You know, nobody should really be left behind. We're seeing this summer, I'm seeing a lot of wonderful online resources, you know, in English. But I'm wondering, like, when is this going to be available in the regional languages? Because India's a population of, you know, over 1 billion people. But the great thing is that I think a few years ago, 2017, NCRT, CBSE, there's a lot of open sources now. Like NCRT books are available, you know, online. Anyone can access it. CBSE website. Now you've got this Diksha app. It has, you know.
Do you think like that's again, I feel for English speaking students, like in the two and third tier towns, when mainly it is about your local language. Do you think we can talk to our governments to give?
From what I understand, I think it's,
Our students from humble backgrounds, because go ahead.
Sorry, your voice was breaking. I didn't catch you. The last sentence you said. From what I know, I think it's been translated into about 15 different languages, but I'm not sure. But we have many, right? We have many regions.
Just like you said about the Abhishek commercial, you know, when the Spanish flu happened, it was the radio that taught kids 100 years ago in California. Like teachers would teach through radio. Now, that was 100 years ago, but I think our technology has just gotten better. We're looking at different ways of coping with this. Yeah, and you're saying that they have been translated into different languages?
Yeah, but I think it's still a long way to go. But the fact that I think they put it on, you know, the CBSE website, and NCRT has these resources. What is going to still be an issue is that, well, you might be wondering, okay, if everything is online, the learning objectives are online, we even have this alternative academic calendar that CBSE has put online, right? And it gives you a month-to-month breakup of what needs to be done. So it's kind of a blend of synchronous and asynchronous, activities. But really, what the differentiator is going to be is it doesn't have the pedagogy, it doesn't have the methodology. So, those who can will be able to navigate it, but those who can't, who need that hand-holding, who need that mentoring, that facilitation, that support, that might be, an issue. And if you were to ask schools like us, like, what is going to be different? I think what's going to be different for us is what is it that we can deliver that a smart device can't deliver, right? How are we going to address those social and emotional learning needs? How are we?
That's my next question. Exactly. I mean, I don't need online classes from, we own schools and engineering colleges. We have access to that. And as you said, Harvard and all the other schools are giving away free tools for learning. But it is that what I feel is important is that socio hand-holding, understanding, the compassion, the teacher knowing it's not just about getting marks. And are we really are we really teaching them about crisis management in the future with what is going on right now?
So that's the thing. I mean, when I was talking about the 21st century skills, those are really skills that address how does one deal in unprecedented or uncertain times. Right now we're in VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. I mean, we've just got like a big burst of, okay, what do we do now, right? And everyone is reinventing themselves and adjusting to this new normal. I think in terms of, I think one of the questions when we were having a conversation, you were asking like whether technology can replace a teacher with this shift towards digital learning. And just this afternoon, I took a training session, an online webinar with my new staff that has joined. And it was about brain compatible learning, the book that I wrote about. And really the main question I ask, whether it's an educator, whether it's a parent, is that you have to ask yourself, with all this online resource, right? What is it that you can do that a smart device can't do? If you want to be relevant, right, and you want to be useful in the education space, you have to be able to meet some needs that, the smart device isn't going to give, artificial intelligence isn't going to give. And there's a lot of talk about, okay, artificial intelligence is going to take over jobs and this and that. But, at Stanford and Bailey and Sims Lab, they've been trying to research on how to get into the social and emotional, motivation and all these things they're trying to like figure out, because AI can't do it yet,
because
space you can't do it.
Because right now being at home, you got to be self-guided, self-motivated. You need to push yourself. It's not like the teacher saying, hey, Nirvana, what are you up to? Hey, Laxmi, what you up to? I mean, I know a lot of teachers who are just looking through the computer to see what the kids are doing. The angle is wrong. And do you think the kids will do better with a situation like this, when you're self-motivated, when you don't have peer pressure to be better, or an environment? I mean, my daughter goes to a Montessori school, and every second word is environment. How is their environment? And how do we manage those aspects of all? Yes, we do want to be relevant in our children's education, but I'm working from home, and I can't be with my daughter on her online classes. I didn't sign up for homeschooling. Well, maybe I would have thought a few more times if I had to homeschool her. So now we are put with this, with both of us working at home, with our child at home. And right now, I'm not going to send her to school. I've made a decision. I will not send her to school. She goes to a beautiful school called Abode right now. She was going to move to Aga Khan. And I decided I don't want to send her until the vaccine comes, because she's here to see my parents, and she coming back home and me stressed out about who is in that cafeteria,
Yeah.
How do you, for me, more than she being a first grader, for me, what's important is for her to have her mental stability where she doesn't feel like, oh, I'm missing out on her friends or her teachers or a playtime. How can we cope? How can we help them with that?
You know, I don't know, Lakshmi. I don't think that you can replace, the school, like the physical school experience. And I hope that this is just really like a short interim period where we have to just kind of wait it out a little bit until it's, safe enough for everyone. But, you're not, I keep saying, like, in the information age, I mean, this has been there for, like, I would say almost a couple of decades. You don't send your children to school for information, right? Information has been available, you know, at your fingertips for a very, very long time, right?
True,
You send your children to school for the experience, right? And I
true.
love one of Einstein's maxims. He says that knowledge is experience, everything else is just information. And unless a teacher or an educator is creating, facilitating experiences, multi-sensorial experiences for the children, they don't need to come to school because content is available. But how many people are have that self initiative, have that drive, have all of what it takes to progress, at their own pace? Sometimes you need a little bit of that peer pressure, that encouragement. You kind of need those things to sort of be an incentive, right, for you to be that way. School, it's kind of like a human relations laboratory of a sort, right? You learn so many different life skills in that. Your child is in first grade. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book called All I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. It was like a bestseller, like,
Yes,
I don't know, a couple of decades
yes.
ago. But it really talked about all the life skills that you need, like saying please and thank you, and work some, play some. I mean, these are things that you kind of need for life. And he so beautifully talks about, you learn all that in kindergarten, really. The
Yes.
most essential about hygiene and manners and putting away your things. There was just like a dozen or 15 things that you kind of needed. But I don't know. I think this cadence of accountability, right, that happens in a peer setting, like how much is a parent going to monitor? How much is a child going to be left to self-monitor, right? And I think you being in the entertainment industry, I mean, everyone knows what it takes to be fit, right? You have to exercise, you have to eat right. But why do you have a trainer? Why do you have a nutritionist, right? Why do you have to meet them at certain regular intervals? It's that cadence of accountability. Like, they're going to take you from X to Y by when, and these are the lead measures that you're going to use, right, to do that. And sometimes you kind of need that to have that incentive to help you mentor and facilitate where you can get from. And everybody has a different zone of proximal development, right? You're here right now. Where can you go with a little bit of guidance and support?
That's true. And you were talking about how are people involved in the multisensory? How are you engaging your kids? So what does like the next academic year for Glendale look like? I mean, I'm sure each of us are learning from each other, and it is online. And one of my best friends is she's a teacher trainer. And she used her husband to send every email, right? And now she's doing it all on her own, like reinventing ourselves, as you said. So how is that like how is Glendale going to be looking at the next academic year? Are you going to put, my question is, so a first grader is going to be top first grader, like all things first grader, or are you going to just relax and keep them engaged and not worry about them learning everything they need to in grade one? Like, how are you going to balance that off?
Well, I mean, like I said, ever since this happened, luckily, we had Google Classroom, so we were already familiar with Google Classrooms, how they work. The kids were working with the Chromebooks. So to switch when the lockdown happened, the last 3-4 weeks of school to online, I think we were able to do it like almost overnight. Like, we were able to do the best that
Transition.
we can. Yeah, we had you know breakout groups for the children in a virtual environment. We had virtual PTM, parent teacher meeting at the end of the year. We even had a virtual summer camp. You know, and we have now June 1st, right, when the teachers come back to school, we have a big kind of welcome back bash, you know, online to welcome back the students. We've worked out how is it that they can contact the school counselor to deal with whatever is happening, you know, emotionally, anxiety, things like that with this uncertainty that is there. So I think we've already had like a head start in it. And our teachers and our heads and our instructional leaders all throughout the summer, they have been, you know, upskilling themselves, attending all these, you know, webinars, making sense of it. And I think it basically, when you look at all that learning that the education community has been doing, those who have been proactive at least, it boils down to being future ready. So we want to be future ready with the remote learning, with the resources that are there. Obviously keeping cyber safety in mind. That's why we're not using a platform like Zoom, because it's not as secure as, you know, the Google. We're really trying to focus on the human connection and how best can you in these circumstances optimize that social and emotional learning, right? And that's basically brain compatible, and our teachers are, you know, very familiar with it, that you have to have an emotional connection. You know, semantic memory just kind of fades from your mind, but anything that you do that has an emotional connection, it sticks, right? How do you optimize the student engagement? So with brain compatible learning, if you learn how you learn, so that's basically metacognition, right? If you can learn how you learn, then everyone becomes smarter in life. You know exactly what needs to be done. It's really not about content. It's not about information. It's really about what is it that you can do with that information that's most important. There's also a lot of work that we're doing on new ways of approaching assessment and recording and evaluating students, right? So we need to first understand what is life worthy, what is worth learning in this, you know, distant period where you can't have everything, right? So we're looking
Yeah.
at that. And then do we have projects? Do we have e-portfolios? Do we have directed research that the children can do at their own pace? We're also strengthening our partnership, right, across the whole teaching learning community, because we need to work with them. We need to hear what they are struggling with, right, as well. Like,
Oh,
for example, if
I'm
we
sure
have
they are. I'm only here rooting for the parents. You can root for the teachers and learning community.
no, but
I'm like, we're going crazy.
yeah, but we did a lot of things, like, because, you know, a lot of people were without household help and maids and all, right? So we did a couple of interesting things. Like, we posted these challenges, the life skills challenge, and we had parents
Oh,
record their kids helping out with household things like cutting vegetables, vacuuming, dusting, wiping down the
yes,
windows, you know.
that's
And it became kind of
fantastic.
an inspirational thing. Like, everyone wanted to be recorded doing
Yeah.
household, you know, housework. And then we just made that part of kind of our life skills and our, you know, we're a leader in me school, so it was all about the 7 habits and how we're being proactive and things like that, how we're creating a win-win
How
situation out of it.
That's fantastic. That sounds great. Now,
Pinapatuttawa.
what do you have to tell parents? How do we deal with this? Do they need to worry about losing a year of school? Like, oh, he works so much better being in a bigger environment. And then I've heard other kids who are usually shy in classrooms have suddenly excelled on online classes because they're not shy or afraid about what's going on otherwise. So there has been a shift, a difference in how people I've heard that teachers see how students learn as well. But for us parents, do we need to worry? Is 1 year a big deal that we have to stress so much about our kids learning and we stressing? For me, I think you make sure you got your job and your money coming home, and the rest can be taken care of because everybody's getting laid off, you
I
know?
don't think that learning is going to be, you know, held up a year. I really don't think so. I think learning is definitely continuing, whether there's a lockdown or
Wow.
not. If you just think about, if you wanted to learn something, right, Lakshmi, what do? You either look it up on the net, or you call up somebody who may know about it, or you'll interview somebody about it, and you'll ask
My
them.
daughter wanted to ask Google if Santa Claus was real. I had to fight her for it. I'm like, Santa Claus is real. You're not going to Google that.
Yeah,
She's like,
so
but
so
ask
that's
Google, Amma. Yeah.
so there's really a lot of like I was hearing Sugata Mitra like on in a talk recently, right? And he says that we're basically like an answer driven um, curriculum, right? Like you have all this information in the syllabus, whatever board you follow, and then you have to know these answers. That's a little outdated, unfortunately. Like we understand that that's a stepping stone for higher education, but what if you had a question driven curriculum? Rather, instead of compliance, what if you had co-creation, right? A co-creation, like these are the human problems that we have. Like let's take the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals about responsible consumption and life on land and clean water and sanitation, right? We live in the country of jugaad, right? Jugaad is that
Yes.
funny innovation that we do.
Yeah.
What if we open it up? Like this is a question. Okay, go to Google, go to the internet, talk to people who you think may know about it, and let's come up with solutions. And in the process, they learn about it. So I really feel that educators should inspire children to learn about the world around them, not only text-wise, content-wise, right, and have a test on it and regurgitate it on an exam. They need to learn on how to sustain it, how to make it a better place. I mean, we need to be learning lessons with what's happening, right? With the environment, with everything. Like we see that with just a little bit of a lockdown, look at how the earth kind of refreshed itself, right? There was cleaner air, you could hear the birds, there's species that kind of came
True.
back in the environment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And they didn't take too long. They didn't take
yes,
too long.
it didn't. It happened really, really fast, right?
Yeah.
Slow down the human activity and then look at all the beautiful things that happen. So can we co-create something like that? Like, and this is one thing that I wanted to tell you about technology a little earlier. I forgot. Picasso, who's Pablo Picasso, very last century, he said that computers are really stupid. And he said, you know why? Because they can only Picasso.
I lost you there 1 second. You said something Picasso. Can you repeat that,
so
please?
Picasso, who's a famous artist,
Yes.
he said in the last century, he said, you know what? Computers are really stupid. And you know why they're stupid? Because they can only give you answers. It's human beings that can ask questions. And there's a book by Warren Berger called A Most Beautiful Question, right? A More Beautiful Question. He talks about in this book that all innovation and disruption has been led with a question, right? If you're just going to regurgitate the same answers, how are you going to develop? How are you going to evolve? And if you want the citizens of the world to evolve, you need to ask very, very intelligent questions and let them come up with problem-solving solutions, based on what you have, based on what we know, what we can investigate, what we can pull together. Like I said, it's not about memorizing information up here. Those days are gone. Teachers are not repositories of knowledge, right? They cannot be a sage on stage, whether it's in the physical classroom or, in their online. I mean, if they're a boring lecture, I mean, who's going to listen to them online, right? You're not going to be relevant. You're going to zone out even more in an online space. So we need to really think of education in a different way. We need to lead by very, very intelligently asked questions. The critical thinking skills, also known as higher order thinking skills, it's all about how you lead that curiosity and that investigation, that inquiry with very, very intelligent questions.
Do you think they would?
A computer can't ask you that question.
No, they can't.
Create a question. Only a human being can, right?
Do you think kids will, do you think it'll be within a year that they'll come back? Or what is the consensus that you're getting, talking to parents, about sending kids back to school? I don't know when your academic year starts. If it's CBSE, I'm assuming it's June. My daughter is in August because she's in an IB program. But But are parents feeling comfortable to sending kids home? I mean, to school? And do you think once all this is over, they will send the kids back to school once they're so used to their kids being at home and having a rhythm, you know?
I think there's still some anxiety, Lakshmi. I think you kind of
Mm,
echo that sentiment as well. I mean, schools can, take all the hygiene measures and the social
yes.
distancing and things like that. They know that the kids are really missing this because really, when you go to school, it's that entire experience, right? From the bus and chatting with
Oh,
your friends to the
absolutely,
assemblies, to
absolutely.
your classes, your
I've
dining,
I've felt
cafeteria,
worse
the events.
about not Nirvana going to school, but she not hanging out with her friends or the stories she comes back with, and just the other aspects of it, you know. And so I've started calling her friends, and I've never met these kids' parents before, but now I know all of them through Zoom and connecting her so she doesn't miss them out because it is all of that they miss, starting from the bus and what did you get in your tiffin box. My daughter was big on what she's taking on her tiffin box.
Exactly,
She wanted
sharing
to, like, those
snacks
little
and
things, right? But you
of
do
course,
feel that
of
kids will
course.
come back to school once all this is.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the exact
Um,
facts, but I heard UK is
so
opening up. So they're kind of, valuing human connect and human touch versus high tech, So, I mean, let's see. I mean, we can learn from those who are braving that
some
fun
schools in the
period.
north are already shut. Some schools in the north are already shut for the year. They've already told them it's going to be next academic year, and this year it's only going to be online. So they're not even saying we'll wait it up, we're ready to go when it is. They're like, nope, we just shut and shop. School, not a lot of schools that I know, my friends go to Dunes and such schools up north where it's really cold.
Hmm.
Thank God they were here for their summer, I mean, their spring break and then stayed back. Um, so yeah, I think one day at a time, but it really gives us a lot of insight when once you spoke about it, Anjum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're
Now
taking
coming to the
surveys, actually. Like we're taking
ah
parent surveys just with that parent partnership. And I think, like you said, we're just taking it one day at a time. Like, I think it's forcing us to be in the now. We don't know what's going
yeah,
to happen. Especially in the beginning,
what
it's
can
like
you
you're looking
tell
at it week
us?
to week, you know?
Yeah, truly, truly. I have two questions. One, um, what is the screen time that is allowed for kids to watch whatever they want to watch? And the last question being, is there anything you want to tell us parents, like to calm our nerves down? Like I don't, so you can end it with that with these two questions.
Screen time, I think the research shows that maybe it's about 2.5 to 3 hours. That's a little bit more comfortable with a little bit of break. I think you have to also be aware, right, Lakshmi? I mean, there is a lot of electromagnetic radiation, and especially if you're on a high frequency platform. I mean, how much do you want to kind of expose that? And it's also a little exhausting. Like, I noticed myself, like, I do feel a little bit drained, after Zoom meetings and things like that, Um,
Yes.
you have to balance it out. What we've decided to do is we've decided to have some academic classes, in the morning, give them a nice long break, and then we reassemble for our visual and performing arts and our sports. So we're still going to actually go ahead with that and have, because I think kids need that outlet, right? They need a little bit of
Yes.
creativity. Our sports department was coming up with really interesting things like little challenges, in football, skill drill, things like that. You can still do some inspirational things with that, though you're not physically meeting. We can still keep fit in creative ways. We can still be
Fantastic.
creative in very interesting ways as well, at least in
Yeah.
the term period.
And going away, what can you tell us parents to take a chill pill that you guys have it covered or play with you along the way and figure it out day by day? What
I
would
think so. I think that partnership, I mean, we have that term in our school at Glendale group, right? We call our parents our partners in education. We say that your children are our children and we have a common investment to make. So it's our children, right? And how are we going to invest in our children? And I think Like we have a meeting tomorrow with the parent group, and I think constant dialogue. We're trying to figure out, I think, this new normal. Nobody's been here before, right? So we have to figure it out as we're going on, and we have the children's best interest in mind. Obviously they want the best for their children. We want the best for our children, our students, right? I think that at the end of the day, there's so many human needs that precede intellectual needs. Like if you look at Maslow's, right, hierarchy of needs. So my closing remarks to parents is that when we look at that, I mean, we provide your base levels, your physiological needs, your roti, kapra, makan, right? Like, I mean, we're thankful, we're grateful, we have these comfortable homes, and we've been locked up for such a long time, and it's just
True.
us, it's just our environment. After that, what are your needs? Your safety needs, right? It's about keeping safe. And then it's your emotional needs, right? Your love and belongingness. And where do you find that? You find that first in your families, right? And there is such a anxiousness and uncertainty, and these children, we've seen this in our adult life. They're seeing it at such a young and tender age. We need to have empathy. We need to have so much empathy and assure them, teach them to live in the moment. They need to see how we're optimizing this time. I'm personally enjoying this inward time. I'm really happy.
I don't know how much more inward you can go, Anjum. You got it all out there.
I mean, I love the fact that I don't have any social obligations, and I'm left alone, and I could be at home, and just I'm really enjoying this space. So I think it's about how the children see us dealing with this uncertainty. So that's love and belongingness. Yes, and then it's your self-esteem, right? Then it's your needs. What kind of messages are we telling our children as schools and as parents about their self-efficacy, about how they can get through this, right? Giving them that encouragement, giving them that motivation that it's going to be okay. Difficult things happen, but difficult things pass, and we have to be optimistic about it. We have to be careful, cautious, but we have to also be optimistic. And then come your intellectual needs. So learning is like somewhere in the middle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and there's all these other human needs that precede that. And I think if we focus on that, we don't neglect that. Let's not be hyper or anxious about what are they going to learn. I mean, I think learning is natural. Human beings, if you look at the biological paradigm, right, all human beings adapt. Look at how quickly we adapted to this new normal, right? Or are adapting to this new normal, whether it's technology. So I think we have it in us. I think it's programmed within us. It's just going to come out. Our potential is going to, be unleashed as we see, as we unfold. In fact, development is the unfolding of potential. When you envelope something, you close it. But when you develop, you're unfolding. And that's what at Glendale, that's what we're about, right? It's the spectrum of human potential that we're developing, that we're unleashing, and how is it going to come out. And we have some really interesting things planned for the whole person approach about the body, mind, heart, spirit, and hopefully that's going to keep everybody's spirits up in this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I was distracted. My daughter was crawling around because she didn't want to be seen. But thank you, Anjum.
Thank you, Laxmi.
That was insightful. It cleared up a lot of questions. I'm not so worried so much anymore. And I think we'll all be okay, as you said, and as human beings, we adapt very quickly, and we've seen it ourselves. We don't need any more time to say the same. But so thank you so much. This was so great talking to you.
Thank you, Laxmi. Thank you so much. I think every day we just have to be complete with where we are right now. You plan as
so
if
important.
Forever, but then you should be ready to die tomorrow. If you have to, do you have everything kind of taken care of? Are you complete in all aspects of your life?